My dear fellow students, in continuation of the lectures on Australian literature and David Malouf, I, Samira Sinha from JN College, Ranchi University, am on Radio Kanchi 90.4, Hum Sabka Radio. Today, I will elaborate and evaluate the poem Wild Lemons by Malouf, which is prescribed in the 6th semester, paper 14, unit 4. In our previous lectures, we went into the life and times of David Malouf, an Australian poet. Out of his 3 volumes of poems, the second volume, published in 1980, titled Last Things First, contains the relevant poem Wild Lemons. It is a celebration of the Australian natural background and the world of nature. While his early poems are subjective and personal, his later poems are deeply philosophical and meditative. But before delving into the critical evaluation of the poem, it is advisable to read the poem first, followed by a detailed analysis of the poem. And one should, while discussing, make annotations on the hard copy of the poem for ready reference at the time of preparation of answers. This will be followed with a few critical evaluation and comments in the summing up. But first, a reading of the poem Wild Lemons is a must. The poem is: through all those years, keeping the present open to the light of just this moment, that was the path we found. You might call it a promise, that starting out among blazed trunks, the track would not lead nowhere. That being set down here among wild lemons, our bodies were expected at an occasion up ahead that would not take place without us. One proof was the tough-skinned fruit among their thorns. Someone had been there before us and planted these, their sunlight to be sliced for drinks. They had adapted in their own way and to other ends. Another was the warmth of our island, sitting still in its bay at midnight, humming and rising to its own concerns. But back heat struck, lapped by clean ocean waters at dawn. The present is always with us, always open. Though to what, out there in the dark, we are making for, as 7 o'clock strikes and gin goes down and starlings gather, who can tell? Compacts made of silence as a flute tempts out a few reluctant stars to walk over the water. I lie down in different weather now, though the same body, which is where that rough track led. Our sleep is continuous with the dark, or that portion of it that is this day's night. The body tags along as promised to see what goes. What goes is time, and clouds melting into tomorrow of our breath. A scent of lemons run wild in another country, but smelling always of themselves. Why lemons? What does it remind us of? What do you think? Why wild? What does lemon remind us of? When we hear the word lemon, we are immediately reminded of its sharp, refreshing smell first, and then the equally sharp, sour taste. Is that not so? A round or oval tough-skinned fruit is what we are reminded of. And what about the tree? Have you seen a lemon tree before? The thorns are quite big and sharp, rather wild. Does the lemon taste the same everywhere in the world, or does it taste different? At first glance, after a preliminary reading of the poem, it appears that the poet is speaking of four things mainly. The first is about the passage of time. Repeated references to past, present, and future is made. The second is the permanence of nature. Wild lemons, its sharp and strong fragrance conjures the sour, tangy taste. Its refreshing juice has remained unchanged over the passage of time across the world. The third, even the sowing of the lemon tree acts as evidence of presence of humans since ancient times in an alien land called Australia. And the fourth is the poet's love of his country, which reminds him of warm sunny shores lapped by the waves of the ocean surrounding it on all sides, while he lies pensively in a different clime and culture on European soil during his several visits. The sharp, tangy smell of lemons evoke fond memories of his homeland in Australia, arousing a sense of national pride. At the very onset of the poem, David Malouf begins by saying that all these years he, as others too perhaps, has been consciously living in the moment, just this moment. Please see line 2 in your hard copy and underline just this moment. Do you find the phrase? In other words, it refers to the present only. But the fragrance of the lemons transport him back in time and place towards a past of his beloved homeland and its rugged terrain, where the blazed trunks, you'll find these words in line number 4. That is, tree trunks weathered by years of intense sunlight and heat, all of which held the promise of a bright future, a happy destination. Here you may observe how the poet interestingly emphasizes two negatives to suggest a positive. The track would not lead nowhere. This is in line 5. The track would not lead nowhere. The track obviously leads towards the place where the wild lemons grew or grow. It is perhaps the spot where secret communions were held, a place where they would meet and communicate while sitting among the thorny wild lemons, tasting the tough-skinned fruit. Please see in line 9, the tough-skinned fruit. Or perhaps it was a place of burial, where our bodies were expected at an occasion up ahead that would not take place without us. Please underline in line 6, 7, and 8. Our bodies were expected at an occasion up ahead that would not take place without us. Either way, it suggests a communion with nature, while the existence of the lemon tree was proof of the fact that someone, perhaps an ancestor, had been there much before and planted this lemon tree. The resilience of nature, its characteristic, is brought out succinctly by the use of words like tough-skinned fruit among their thorns. And although the fruit grows among thorns, their sunlight is to be sliced for drink, line 11 and 12. there's sunlight. The fruit is called sunlight, which is to be sliced for drink. Notice the delightful use of associations here. The sunny yellow colored fruit is full of health, giving vitamin C, just like sunlight, which promotes vitamin D. These wild lemons have adapted themselves through various climes and times, and therefore they have survived through the ages. And from here onwards, the poet's thoughts travel towards his beloved country, Australia, which, as you know, is an island surrounded by the waters of the ocean. The poet describes its warmth. Refer to line 14, please. The poet describes its warmth as it is, as it sits still in its bay, as if it were a living, breathing entity. See line 15 and 16. Humming and rising to the concerns of its countrymen. Humming and rising as if it were breathing. In line 17, it is heat struck. His country, he describes his country as being heat struck, and yet it is lapped by clean ocean waters at dawn. That is, in the clear, cool, and quiet atmosphere of dawn. The poet proceeds to contrast the present to the sunny warmth of the past that he has imaginatively evoked. He is at the moment in another country with a different weather. Line 25, you'll find these words in line 25, different weather, a different clime. As it strikes 7 p.m., the gin, an evening drink, is consumed as the starling birds gather and twitter, breaking the compacted silence of the darkening sky. A distant, melodious sound of a flute plays beauteous notes, as if coaxing the stars to peep out and glitter over the waters. This beautiful description is found from line 20 to line 24. Then the same body, which had enjoyed the sliced sunlight of the wild lemons in an Australia, is now in an alien land where once again nature continues to delight the senses. The significance of the occasion that would not take place without us, and stated in the beginning of the poem, line 8, is very beautifully contrasted here with its insignificance experienced in the larger context and design of nature. The poet Malouf emphasizes that our sleep is continuous with the dark, and what goes is time. It is significantly pointed out by him with the help of a contrast that the passage of time is unstoppable as it moves into the present and melts into the future. That is, the tomorrow of our breath. Line 31, please. The tomorrow of our breath. The scent of lemons, which is sliced for evening drinks in a place of his visit to Europe, conjures up images and memories of warm and sensory images of his homeland, that is Australia. Although lemons grow wildly in Australia, their fragrance remains the same in Europe. They smell always of themselves. Line 32. It is this phrase with which the poem closes, always of themselves. What does that mean? The depth of meaning here perhaps echoes to far-reaching existence, that just as the lemons have an unchanged identity, no matter where they grow, human existence and identity in the same way remains the same and specific to the birthplace, that is, national identity. No matter where he travels or exists in the world, the poet's body or being harks back to the nation to which his identity is indelibly linked. In this poem, Malouf's powers of imagination, his evocation of land, home, and memory through the arousal of sensuous memories of the scent of lemons, has successfully developed the theme of identity. The underlying urge of every human being. There are different levels of approach to this wonderful poem, which cannot be pondered over at this moment due to the paucity of time. But it does evoke Keatsian view of, the Keatsian line of thought, that is, to observe the world or to experience the world through the sensory organs. That is sight. You have seen in this poem wonderful images that have been drawn of a warm countryside. The sense of smell, the tangy lemon smell, the sense of taste, the olfactory image of the taste of lemon, the tactile image, that is the warmth of the island, as well as the auditory image, as you can see in the sound of the flute that urges the last starlings to come out and glitter over the waters. Likewise, there can be other interpretations, multiple layers of interpretation, but nevertheless, in this particular edition of the evaluation for a proper understanding of the poem Wild Lemons, one can approach it through the following three questions. First, why the mention of lemons only? Second, what associations do the lemons bring to the mind? And third, what is the connection of lemons and human identity as described here in this poem? With that, I will leave you to ponder over further meanings of this poem, this very beautiful poem. I hope you enjoyed it.